Welcome to the Gray Path Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tony B, coming at you from Iceland. This is the first of what I suspect will probably be several episodes I'll record while I'm here. I am recording this one as I am driving. I've got a long drive ahead of me. I'm heading out to a place called Glacier Lagoon. It'll be my first solo adventure here since I have made landfall yesterday. So today's episode, we're going to focus on some of the lessons and musings that I had while I was hiking yesterday. Now, unfortunately, I cannot pronounce the name, but I hiked to the current active volcano in Iceland. Now, this hike, I'd already prearranged it. It's one of the two actual tours that I'm doing while I'm here in Iceland. The rest of my adventures are going to be spontaneous and solo, which is why I rented a car. But anyway, I had this one planned. In hindsight, perhaps not the smartest thing to do after traveling for 30 hours and doing an international flight was a 6-hour hike up, pretty, I don't know if the word's treacherous, but pretty difficult terrain. But anyway, I'd already had it scheduled, so that's what I did. So when I arrived yesterday in Iceland, it was in the very early morning. I think it was about 5 a.m.-ish local time. Went through customs, which is a very streamlined process here. Got my COVID test, which was the first time I've had one of the tests where they poke your brain through your nose, so that was an interesting experience. Got my rental car, got to my hotel, which is where I hit the first, I guess you could say, little speed bump. So I get to my hotel, and the gentleman at the front desk, who was very pleasant, informed me that for some reason, somehow, my reservation was canceled. To which, of course, we both knew was strange, considering here I was, present in Iceland. So obviously I didn't cancel it. So anyway, I guess at that point, let's talk about dealing with adversity. So I was tired. I was sore. I had been traveling at that point since it had been about 27 hours. I had been traveling at that point. And surprisingly, though I expected to be, I wasn't agitated. I was actually just... At that point, I felt like I was just basically a pushover because I was tired, exhausted, hungry, sleepy. I hadn't slept. I tried sleeping on the plane, didn't work. And, we Americans don't have the greatest reputation in the rest of the world, which I'm not bashing America. I mean, I am American. But the truth of the matter is we don't have a very good reputation with the rest of the world, especially within the last 4 or 5 years. Our reputation was pretty severely tarnished. Not that it was all that stellar to begin with. So when the gentleman, who was a younger guy, he actually looked a lot like Jared Leto, when he told me that the room was canceled, you could tell on his face that he was expecting a backlash, a quote-unquote Karen, if you will. But I was like, okay, sir, well, obviously, it's not correct in here. And he was like, yes, I don't think this is correct. So he just, he asked me to have a seat because there was a line kind of building behind me. So I just went over to the little lobby, and I'm staying in a place called Alda. It's the Alda Hotel. It's right in downtown Reykjavik, right on the main shopping street. So I just kind of sat down and kind of turned my brain off at that point because, I'd been traveling all day. I was tired. At that point, I realized I had a tour coming in a few hours. I had not yet realized it was a hike. I had just looked at my itinerary, saw, volcano tour. Oh boy, I forgot I scheduled this for the day I arrived. So, long story short, as I was sitting at the table, I'm thinking to myself, this is cool. This is fine. So what? It got canceled. And then I thought to myself, what's the worst that can happen in this situation? Well, the worst that can happen is they come back and they say, well, I'm sorry, we have no idea how your reservation was canceled, but we're booked. In which case, I guess you can say one of two options comes. You can get frustrated and flustered and agitated and lash out, or you can seize the opportunity. Now, fortunately, unfortunately, depending on your viewpoint, they did not come back with that. They came back and said, "Thank you, sir, for waiting." They thanked me like 100 times for how like understanding I was, and they said, "You know what? We've got y'all taken care of. Here's your room, such and such, blah blah blah." So I went up to my room, and at that point, like, I'm tired and I'm achy. And when you arrive in Iceland right now, even though I am fully vaccinated, you can't get into the country unless you're fully vaccinated, or you have to show like documented proof that you had COVID and that you got over it. Otherwise, they just won't let you in. Well, even though I've been vaccinated, you still have a mandatory 5 to 6 hour quarantine while they process the test that they give you at the airport. So at that point, I think I had between when I had the test and when I went on my tour was 6 hours. Almost, it's like 6 hours and 15 minutes or something like that. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go up to my room. Went up to my room. Lovely little quaint room. I mean, it's not large by any means. Anyone who knows anything about where I live, my house, I call it the Mountain Fortress. My house is very, very large. I guess you could say typical American ideology as far as I've got this big giant house and it's me and my son. But I got a huge house, but this room, very quaint. You know, it's got a little, like full-size bed, tiny little desk, little area you can like sit or put your suitcase. I put my suitcase there. And then a bathroom that's about half the size as the rest of the room. Nice little bathroom, sink, you know, regular stuff. The shower was nice, has a rainfall head. So just a quaint little room, little balcony that you can walk out on. And it doesn't, you know, you can't really see much because you're facing away from the street. But just quaint little room. So I'm in there and I'm tired and I'm achy and I'm like thinking to myself, maybe I'll just skip the volcano tour because I didn't realize I had scheduled it for the same day that I arrived. I, at that point, realized that it was a hiking tour. And it kind of brought me back to the last time I was in Iceland. So the last time I was in Iceland, I had a similar-ish situation with the Golden Circle tour, which if you come to Iceland, you have to take the Golden Circle tour. It's like some of the best waterfalls in Iceland all done as one tour, which is a lot to see, but you have to do it. You have to do it. So anyway, when I was in Iceland the first time, which was 2 years ago, I had the Golden Circle tour scheduled for Saturday morning. Well, that Friday night, I went out because everybody I had met in Iceland said, you know, you have to experience Iceland nightlife. It's like, you have to do it. So I went out Friday night for Iceland nightlife, and I got maybe just a smidge more than slightly intoxicated. I was trashed. Let's call it what it is. I was hammered. My friends in Sabre School really appreciated it because I apparently drunk texted them most of the night. Anyway, I was intoxicated. I had definitely partaken of the spirits of Iceland, and had just an amazing adventure. Well, I didn't get back to my hotel until I think it was 4 a.m, which I walked 2.5 miles in the pouring rain while very intoxicated back to my hotel, which I'm quite proud of, by the way. Some people are like, Tony, that's unsafe. It's okay. You know, Iceland's probably one of the safest, if not the safest country. So no biggie. Did it like a champ. I was one of probably 200 drunk people wandering the streets. Anyway, get back to my hotel at like 4 a.m, booted, rallied, laid down to go to sleep. My super smartness had scheduled the Golden Circle tour to leave at 8 a.m. that morning. So I think I finally crashed at about 5 a.m. My alarm goes off because the tour, I believe, left at 8 a.m., which means the bus to pick you up at your hotel comes about 30 minutes beforehand. So at 7:30, a whole 2.5 hours after I had just crawled into bed, I had to be at the front of my hotel. So 7 o'clock comes, my alarm goes off. I don't know how I woke up. I felt like death incarnate. Immediately thought to myself, and here's the parallel between that event and yesterday. Immediately thought to myself, nope, this is not happening. Tony, you know yourself, and There is no chance in the world that this is going to happen. But just like yesterday, and just like many times in my life, that voice that tells you to quit was drowned out by the voice that just said, you know what? Put one foot in front of the other and see where you end up at. And I got up and I got dressed and I stumbled down to the lobby of my hotel, got picked up, and Golden Circle tour. Best tour I did my first time I was here in Iceland. So that little message is going to be mirrored in my story for today. So that was a large preamble to get into what I want to talk about today, which is perseverance and pushing through when every fiber of your being is telling you to stop. So yesterday, after I got checked into my hotel, my tour was to leave at 1 o'clock, which means I had to be, in this case, from where Hotel Alda is, I had to go to what was called bus stop 10. It was like 2 blocks up from my hotel. So I get dressed, I go down to the front desk, because at this point in time, I had not known that I had to go to a bus stop. I thought they were going to come to my hotel like they did at the last time. First time I was in Iceland, I stayed at the Hilton, which was a beautiful hotel as well. Go to the front desk, they say, yes, sir, you need to go up to bus stop 10. Okay, fantastic. Hike my way up to bus stop 10, using Google to try to figure out where it's at. Overshot it by about 2 blocks, so I ended up walking 4 blocks when I was supposed to walk 2. Turned around, came back, got on my bus. This was a very packed tour. In fact, so packed that in addition to the very large, think like band touring bus, in addition to the very large bus that we took, they also had to take a secondary van because we had so many people. So as we're going out there, they had 3 tour guides because this is a very dangerous area. So there's 3 tour guides. They inform us that, look, this is going to be an approximate 6-hour hike. They're like, we're going to go out there. We're going to have 3 tour guides, 1 in the front, 1 in the middle, 1 in the back. You go as far as you physically can go. If you need to turn back, we'll get a group together of people who don't want to do or who can't do the whole thing, and we'll make sure you get back to the bus safe. They get all of our information because getting lost is entirely possible. And we send off. And when we arrive, we all get off the bus and they're like, all right, listen, we've just been informed that the normal route that we take people, which is the easiest route, that brings you into the valley, the lava valley, that has been closed off over the last day and a half because fresh magma has come down and took the path out. So can't do that one. He's like, it's okay. We're going to use this secondary path, which will, unfortunately won't bring us into the valley, but we'll still be able to see the volcano and we'll still be able to see the lava fields and it'll be great. So we're all like, woo, fantastic. So then we start hiking. Now, the terrain in Iceland is not the easiest terrain to begin with, because the whole island was formed through volcanic activity. Well, let me tell you, if regular Icelandic terrain is challenging, hiking into what essentially is lava fields, before we got to the active lava fields, we had to hike through quite a bit of, I guess you could call it ancient lava fields. And there's a place, so where I live in western Pennsylvania. There is a place called Wolf Rocks. It's a tiny little hiking place, takes about 2 miles to hike out to Wolf Rocks. And then there's these big, large rock formations which you can climb up and on and in. And I've been there hundreds of times. Well, the last probably mile of Wolf Rocks is very rocky terrain. Not rocky as boulders, but rocky as in small rocks that just populate the whole hiking path. So you're regularly kind of hopping from one rock to the next. And it can be challenging, especially in your feet. Well, if Wolf Rocks is basically a baby trainer course for hiking this volcano. Because the first, and I don't know how far we hiked, I can tell you that it takes about 2 hours to hike from where the bus parked to the actual volcano, down to the crater. It's about 2 hours. All but maybe 10 minutes of it is this incredibly rocky
600
terrain.
meters. At the roundabout, take the second exit.
Okay, sorry, that was my GPS if you couldn't hear it. I have to take the second exit at the roundabout. So we're hiking this stuff, and it's pretty treacherous. And, I'm tired at this point. I haven't slept in close to 2 days. I haven't, well, that's not true. I did eat. They gave me a very, very small, what they called quarantined breakfast at my hotel. But I basically, other than the quote-unquote little quarantine breakfast and a small burger that I had in New York at the airport, I hadn't really ate much in the last 2 days. So I've got my camera bag and stuff on me, and we're going. And I got to say, so the first question I had of myself was probably 15, 20 minutes into the hike. So I'm asthmatic. I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned this in any of the prior episodes. I'm asthmatic. I've had it my entire life. So the beginnings of any sort of physical activity are always challenging for me. When I'm training jujitsu, when I'm rolling, the first, 10, 15 minutes is generally the hardest. I got to suck down a shot of what I call my puffer, just so I can get regular, a normal operating human's lung capacity. So first 15, 20 minutes, at this point, my legs are tired. My body's just been sore from traveling. My back is sore. And my asthma hits me. So I shoot down a hit of puffer, which is challenging because Iceland is windy. It is the second windiest place on Earth. So it's when you're taking something that's an inhaled drug, you have to kind of angle yourself so that the wind doesn't just go poof and you lose your whole dose. I hit my inhaler and I'm like, all right, this sucks, but it's getting better. And that's when the tour guides go, oh, by the way, everyone, the first half hour is the easiest part of the hike. And I'm thinking to myself, this isn't hard, like, oh my God, I'm going to die hard. But this hasn't been easy either. So I'm like, and this is the easiest part of the hike. Okay, interestingly enough. So we go, and about 40 minutes into the hike, we get to this divergence, we hadn't got to the divergence. We get to this T intersection. You can go right and it takes you down to the ocean. You can go left and it takes you to a divergence where there is option B, which I believe he said was route C or A, I can't remember. And then route B. And he's like, okay, well, normally we would take, the first option, but we've been informed we can't do that because of the recent lava flow. So we're like, okay, all right. So we're all, and then they warned us of this at the bus. But when we get to this T intersection, he comes back and goes, hey, we ran into a ranger. And the ranger informed us that the secondary route is inaccessible because the lava has spread to that route and there are toxic fumes that are passing through and they've just closed it off. No more people can go that way today. He's like, but fear not. And this is an older gentleman. And he goes, but fear not. We're going to take yet another route. Option B, or Route B, I believe it's called. He's like, now, this is the hardest way to get to the volcano. He's like, so if anyone wants to turn back, it's completely understandable. And I'm like, whatever, I'm here. So I was like, I can do this. This can't be that bad. So we go to the left at the T intersection then, and we keep hiking. And then we get to this divergence, and he says, oh, hey, by the way, if you'd have taken a right at this divergence, and you can, I'll do a video montage and a photo montage when I'm done with my trip, but anyone who looks at that, I did photograph the divergence. But if you look to the right, which is where we were going to go, or we were supposed to go, you can actually see the black, recently hardened lava that blocked the path off. And there was heavy equipment way, way, way off in the distance that was trying to clear it so they can reopen the path probably tomorrow. So then I looked to the left, which is the route we are going. And this is a long hike, so it's way off in the distance. I noticed this, it's more than a 45 degree, or maybe a 45 degree, maybe a slightly higher than that. Maybe a 40 or 35 degree, crevice, if you want to call it that, path. And I'm like, boy, I hope we don't have to go up that. And then I kind of squint a little bit, and I realize I see these little tiny dots on this path, and I realize, oh no, those are people. That is where we're going. So I was like, all right, well, this will be fun. So we hike on some more, and it gets rockier and more difficult. And then we get to this, I don't know what you want to call it. this crevice that we have to crawl up. And one of the guides comes and says, okay, look, we're going up this. This is going to be challenging. Again, if anyone wants to turn back, it's understandable. He's like, the last leg of it, there is a rope that is installed because you need to basically hold on to this rope because it becomes so steep. You're basically like rope climbing up this last section. So I'm starting to get worried at this point. Like, I'm tired. I'm sore. My legs feel like they've got lead plates in the feet. But I just kept telling myself that you're going to do this, Tony, because when you do this, think of the story that will come from it. So that brings me to really the primary point I want to talk about, and I'm going to intersperse my point along with the story of this ascent up to the volcano and then how I felt when I got there. Many times in life, many times in life, and I'm sure you've experienced this, and if you haven't, and I mean this with no disrespect, I can't wait for you to experience it. If you haven't for some reason, if you have never experienced this type of adversity in your life, I hope that you do, not because I wish you ill will, but because of the strength that it breeds. But anyway, many times in life, we are presented with situations where we're given basically two options. We can give up. We can say valiant effort and give up, or we can somehow dig deep. And maybe it's not even digging. Maybe it's just a matter of just doing what Dory says in Finding Nemo, and just keep swimming. But there comes to a point where in life, you're going to face adversity. You're going to face situations where you can give up or you can push on into the unknown. And that's what happened to me as I was climbing this. I mean, it was hard. Like, I'm not going to splice it up any other way. It was fucking rough. You know, I probably stopped for 30 seconds, like little 30-second stops, probably stopped 5 or 6 times during this like vertical ascent, if you want to call it that. You know, there were people who in my tour group who made it halfway and then were like, nope, it's been fun, but not a chance. You know, I remember at one point, even before getting to the section where you have to use the rope, thinking to myself, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't. Like, my legs are dead. My lungs are dead. And, you know, I had been told by several people as we were ascending that, like, oh, just keep going, because when you get to the top, it's only like another 20 minutes until you get to the volcano. And they were all like saying that as a good thing, like, hey, you get to the top and you've only got 20 more minutes of difficult, but flat at least, terrain. But to my mind, it was, oh my God, like, and a couple times I turned around to take some photos as I was progressively going up this vertical ascent. And I was like, like, wait a minute. I still got more of this to go. But yet somehow I'm supposed to
600
rejoice.
meters. At the roundabout, take the second exit.
But I kept going. When I got to the rope part, it was, at that point, my brain had pretty close to just kind of shut off. And I've experienced this a lot in my life where difficult things happen and your mind has a way of compartmentalizing where it kind of shuts down how aware you are of situations, so as to anesthetize you from the trauma you're experiencing. And that is what happened here. Like, the pain in my body, my back, my legs. For the ascent, it was my glutes and I'd say my glutes and my quads, mostly, for the ascent that were killing me. I got to the rope and I'm like and it's rough because as you're pulling yourself up this section, there's also people that are descending that have already been up there. They're on their own tours and they came on a solo trip and they're descending as you are ascending. And there's only one rope. So the people who are descending are on the opposite side of the rope, kind of like a roadway. But what is challenging is because it's one rope, the slackness of the rope changes depending upon who's ascending in front or behind you and or who is descending in front or behind you. So work my way up and, as I'm going, there's several times where, like, the logical part of my brain is like, all right, man, just stop.
500 meters.
Like,
At the roundabout, take the second exit.
just stop. Like, you've made it this high. It's fantastic, but, you know, it's the first day of your trip. You don't want to injure yourself, blah, 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 blah. But even with that voice chattering in my ear, I was like, no, not a chance. Like, I'm going to make it to the top, whether it kills me. Because when I get up there, it is going to be a victory. And my whole reason for coming to Iceland during this trip is I needed to recharge. Like, I came to this country because I'm burned out, you know? And that's another thing that I feel like maybe a lot of you feel like that. I mean, we're now on the other side, hopefully, fingers crossed. We're now on the other side of a global pandemic. 2020 was a fucking bear of a year. You know, we went and we experienced, and I, no matter where you're listening, I think we all experienced, you good here? No, this guy's on the inner, okay. Sorry, doing a roundabout here, and there are 2 lanes, and yeah, you're going that way, I'm going this way. What are you doing? I don't want to run into you. Sorry. That's what happens when you record while you're driving. Anyway, 2020 was rough. You know, regardless of where you're listening at in the world, I suspect we all experienced lockdowns of varying severity. In Pennsylvania, we had one really strong lockdown period, which was about 2 months, and then a couple of smaller ones where lockdowns were encouraged, but not ironclad. And it was rough. I mean, friendships got tested. We all had to adapt to a brand new way of working in the world. 2020 was rough. 2019, I can't say was a whole hell of a lot better. For me, 2019 was, the year after, or the year where I kind of really had to come to terms and deal with how my life had changed. On January 1st of 2019, on January 1st of 2019 is when my ex-wife, who had been my best friend in my world, she moved out. And by the end, or towards the end, by the fourth quarter of 2019, she had walked out of my son's life. So both myself and my son, 2019 wasn't the greatest year in the world. It wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the greatest either. And then 2020 came, and it was just a whole new world of challenges. So I came to Iceland now, one, because they've opened up to vaccinated people, and 2,
400 meters.
because
At the roundabout, take the second exit.
I need to recharge. I'm burned out. I've been burning the candle at all ends. So as I'm climbing this trail, and in my logical mind's like, hey man, you've already gotten this far, which is commendable, but it's the beginning of your trip. Maybe you ought to just take it easy. Maybe you just admit that scheduling this thing on the first day of your trip was probably not the smartest idea. And who knows, maybe you'll come back on a solo trip while you're here. But even with that chattering in my ear, I knew that if I pushed on, I would do something that I have needed to do, which is I've needed to show myself. I needed a victory. I needed something to show me the old Tony, the Tony who traverses incredible odds and comes out on top, who perseveres in the face of adversity. And I think we all kind of need that after suffering for the last, 18 months in this pandemic atmosphere, and some of us are still suffering. There's places that are still in lockdown. I was just listening to a podcast on my way to the Pittsburgh airport from a gentleman who's in Canada, and he was saying that sections of Canada are still on hard lockdowns. So I guess that's just a lot of word salad to come back and say that I needed a win. I needed to do something that I didn't think I was going to be able to do, so that I can remind myself, hey, Tony, you're a badass. And that comes back to my central theme, which is overcoming adversity. So I climb to the top of this crevice, and I get to the top, and my legs are dead. You know, my glutes, my ass muscles are burning. You know, the only thing that's not really all that sore is my upper body, because I only had to use it for kind of climbing that last section with the rope. And I turn around, and I gotta tell you, the view is just something that you just can't describe. Which again, anyone who, once I get it all edited and stuff, the little video montage or whatever you want to call it that I'm going to do from this trip, and I'll post it on my Facebook, The Great Path, Grey Path, The Great Path on Facebook. I'm going to post it there. I'm going to have some pictures of the view when I turned around after the ascent. And it was like, holy shit, like, this is beautiful. And it's kind of a metaphor for how life tends to be if you can find perspective. So as I'm climbing up this thing, it's not much to look at. I'm looking 2 to 2.5 feet in front of me the whole time, because I'm making sure not to step on loose gravel or loose dirt or trip over a rock. So my focus isn't on the future. My focus is on the immediate present, this whole ascent. And then I get to the top and I'm thinking to myself, oh man, that was challenging. And then I turn around and what do I see behind me but this absolutely gorgeous valley that I had just walked through. And I can see the ocean in the distance and the hills or mountains, whatever you want to call them. And it's just breathtaking. And I look at that and I think to myself, how many times in life have we traversed something difficult, whether physical or mental? How many times have we experienced trauma and experienced hardship? And the whole time, we're focused at 2 to 2.5 feet on the ground in front of us because we want to make sure that we don't trip and kill ourselves. And we become tired mentally, physically. And, when we finally get where we're going, it's so common to just keep walking. But maybe, just maybe, take the time to turn around and appreciate where you came from. One, not only is it a sense of accomplishment, when I'm looking down at this gorgeous valley, I think to myself, holy crap, that tiny white dot down there, that's our tour bus. I hiked from there to here, so I feel accomplished. Look at what I did. And then I think to myself, when I was making that hike, I didn't realize the distance I was traveling, the terrain I was traveling, and I also didn't understand the beauty of the travel. And that is such a powerful lesson, taking the time to look back after doing something challenging and realizing the beauty that you're now presented with, having made this challenge, having conquered this challenge, made this challenging trip, whether physically or mentally. And I thought to myself, I need to share this with my listeners because this is profound. There's a lesson here. And I took the pictures and I took some video, and then I was like, all right, well, I'm still not done yet. It's another 20 minutes until I get to this volcano. Now, I've never been to a volcano before. And I feel that most of us can say that. But yeah, I've never been to a volcano before, let alone an active volcano. I had seen some pictures of this volcano when it was erupting, which if you haven't, just Google it. Again, I can't remember the name of the volcano, and to be honest, even if I could remember it, there's probably very little chance I could successfully pronounce it, and I definitely couldn't spell it. But just Google active volcano, Iceland, 2021. And some of these pictures, I was just looking at some last night, like after my hike, are just breathtaking. Just beyond breathtaking. So I hiked the next 20 minutes, and it's rough. It's flat-ish. Anyone who said it was flat, I was like, really? It's not flat. That's flat-ish. But hiked it, and then I knew I was getting close because you could see like the gas emissions from the distance. So I knew I was getting close. And I already knew I wasn't going to see any lava, which was a bummer. It wasn't actively spewing yesterday. So someone further down in the trail had told us that. So I knew what to expect. I had tapered my expectations. So busted out. I have a couple of different cameras, but one of the ones I brought for this trip was what's called the Pocket Osmo. It's from Digi, same company that makes my drones. And I busted out the Pocket Osmo. It's like this little pocket 3-axis gimbal camera. And I filmed, and which again, I'll post all of this in the video montage. I posted literally the actual trip. I didn't go back and like redo it. It's literally me walking and experiencing it for the first time. And when you crest that hill and you look down at the valley below, because it's a valley on the other side, and you see the active lava fields, holy shit. Like, yeah, it would have been phenomenal if there would have been actual lava, like red lava. There wasn't. But holy shit, the power of nature. Like, there was just this massive valley with all this decimation and, you know, all of this now black, somewhat cooled lava or magma. And there's different areas where, like there were different areas where there was, like, different colorations, just I'm imagining from the mineral deposits. And then the air had this really strong smell of sulfur, and best way to describe it from anyone who I guess is more on the eastern part of the United States, it smelled a lot like a coal furnace, or I guess another example would be like the smell of matches after you light them. Very strong smell, not overbearing or like want to vomit or anything, but like you can tell, you know, some shit happened here. And the other real big indicator is, you know, it's very windy. Like I said, very, very windy in Iceland. And so it's colder. I think yesterday, I'm going to speak in Fahrenheit because I'm American and I don't understand Celsius all that well. But it was about 40, 42 degrees Fahrenheit. So with the wind probably felt like 32-ish, 36-ish. But when we get up into this valley where the volcano is, it immediately spikes up in temperature. It was probably, as I got closer, like, and there were so many people of different nationalities who happened to be up there at the time. I was listening to a gentleman who I believe was Swiss saying how great this was because if he would have been in his country or if he would have been in America, chances are they wouldn't have let us get anywhere near. I mean, we walked right up. I walked directly up to where the lava has gone to this point. And there was a couple of kids. There was one kid who said he was from New York. I just kept thinking to myself, like, well, this is how Darwin Awards are won. He went up, he's like, I'm gonna put my hand on it. And people were like, yeah, do it. He's like, I don't think it'll be hot. And I kept thinking to myself, like, okay, he's probably right. Like, at this point, there's people over there with, like, hiking sticks trying to chisel off a piece. But I was thinking to myself, like, you know, you're probably right, but what if you're wrong? And so he went up there and put his hand on it, and he's like, oh, it's a little warm, but it's mostly cool. But you walk right up to it. And I gotta tell you that, I mean, I'm 36. I've experienced a small amount of what life has to offer, but I've never experienced anything like that sight. Seeing the large crater where most of the magma has come from, with that in the distance, just the devastation that this lava flows have caused. And it's just an otherworldly experience. And as I was standing there, I thought to myself, like, Tony, if you would have given up halfway up that ascent and would have, you know, patted yourself on the back and said, like, well, good job, buddy, you made it this far, and most people didn't even do that, I would have missed out on this feeling, on this experience. And I want you guys as listeners to really think about that. Think about specifically a hard time in your life where you just feel like giving up, where it would just be so much easier to roll over, pat yourself on the back prematurely, and move on. What have you missed out on? How different would your life be if you just kept putting one foot in front of the other? And even through the pain and the adversity and the doubt, if you just kept going, even if it was an inch at a time, think of how different your life could be. I mean, I'm now looking back and I'm thinking to myself, if I'd have turned around and patted myself on the back and said, well, Tony, you gave it a hell of a try, and made excuses like, you know, you just traveled for 30 hours, haven't slept, you barely eaten, like, you know, you did well, buddy. I would have never seen I would have never experienced what it's like to stand at ground zero of an active volcano. I never would have experienced what the air smelled like, what the air felt like. I never would have photographed it or seen it or touched it or experienced it. And my life would be lesser because of it. So I guess what I'm trying to say is try to get perspective when you're experiencing this. And so many of us have experienced, me personally, I've experienced this in so many situations, and a lot of them aren't epic or anything, they're simple shit like, I wake up in the morning and I'm just not feeling it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z today, I'm just gonna say, fuck it, I'm not gonna do it. Or, I face a disappointment with my job or with my personal life or with my son, and I think to myself, my God, how much easier would it be to just quit? How much easier would it be to just say, hey man, hey buddy, look at all you've done. You've given it a good run. But in my head, I know I could have pushed on. It would have hurt. It would have sucked. It would have, been challenging and painful, but I could have. And that creates the what ifs. To me personally, with my gray path, where I'm headed, with figuring out who I am as a person, it can't be an option. It can't be an option that I take. It always is an option. You can always give up. It's there. A lot of people tell you, give it up's not an option. Oh, it's an option. And that's what makes the achievement of choosing not to give up so much more profound. Because giving up is always an option. I don't care how motivated you are. I don't care how driven you are. Giving up is always on the menu. But choosing not to order it, that is what makes you that's what defines you. The choice to not say, waiter, I would like to have the giving up. Choosing not to do that. Choosing to instead order the pain and suffering, because then it leads to a delicious dessert. Sorry, I had a really good meal last night, so I'm thinking in food metaphors. But anyway, to kind of wrap this all up, this has been a larger one. We're going on about 43 minutes now. What I learned from just my first day in Iceland, 2021, is it's easy to give up. It's easy to pat yourself on the back when you have more that you can do, even if you don't feel like you do. I can tell you definitively, if you would have asked me halfway up that ascent, Tony, do you have more in the gas tank? I'd have told you, fuck you, my gas tank emptied probably before I even started this hike. It wasn't a question of, oh, I didn't give up because I knew I had more in me. I didn't know if I had more in me, but I knew that I was going to find out. And I succeeded, and you can too. It's just about perspective. Adversity is a motherfucker. But if you just keep swimming, just like Dory says, just keep swimming. If you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, even if your focus is 1 inch at a time, those inches add up. That's what she said. Sorry. Feeling feisty today. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all very much for joining me on my gray path. I look forward to getting some more episodes while I'm out here for you guys. Hopefully I'll have some amazing pictures and stuff to share with you, as well as more tales. But you all stay safe out there.